What's something a teacher did at school that you're still mad about? When I was in 5th grade and my little sister was in 2nd grade, she wanted to pick some apple blossoms for her teacher. When she presented the little bouquet to her teacher, the teacher flipped out. Lectured her for 10 minutes about why she shouldn't go on people's lawns to pick flowers, then threw the blossoms away in front of her. My sister was devastated, and I found her on the playground, crying. The apple blossoms were from our apple tree, in our front yard. First and last time I have ever yelled at a teacher. Totally worth the office referral. Why is it that they would assume immediately that it was from someone else's tree? Dumbest because that teacher is a cunt. I had a teacher that was an absolute cunt. She was probably early 70s and probably 2007. She was the cheer coach from like 1970 to 1990, which is when I assume she became obese and at some point took up being the trig teacher. I was a football player. Every time we had a game she would tell the cheerleaders who were cheering for our game. She would say, "Ladies, you have a big night ahead of you. You are excused from homework." I would reply, "I am playing the game they are cheering for. Can I get my homework excused? We have to be there an hour before the cheerleaders, and we have a team meeting after the game and showers. We leave an hour after they do." And every time she would reply, "You know I don't support that barbaric sport, even though she supports cheering for it. You will have your homework turned in on time tomorrow. If you can't balance football and homework, then quit the team." Some teacher called me a waste of time and space during the end of school performance because I was too shy to sing. I didn't pick a singing role. I was like 10-11 years old. That is 100% the teacher's fault. I was once told I had broken the computer and felt scared using a computer ever since. 17 years married to a very talented software developer and 15 years in a technical role, and I only just have my confidence back. One time I opened like 50 Firefox windows and the IT person at my school was so dumb she thought it was broken. The next day there was a note on it that said this computer is out of order because a student intentionally damaged it. I went the other way though, and 10 years later I'm in it. A boy in my class, about 8 years old, had dyslexia. So one time, the teacher gave a dictation. He had spelled all the words wrong and she was really mad at him, just shouting to him in the middle of the class that he should have tried harder, he didn't do well enough, etc. He was crying, and from that moment on I really hated her. My 2nd grade teacher told me I wouldn't amount to anything and would never graduate high school because I have dyslexia. Joke's on her. I graduated top of my class at my university for both my majors. Dyslexic chiming, and I just graduated college in May. Bachelor of Science in Liberal Studies. Took me a roundabout way, didn't graduate high school. Took adult classes in my 20s, and from there I went straight into college. Kept thinking I was gonna fail everything because my whole life I had a learning disorder hanging over my head. I made honors. So excuse me why I tell that teacher fuck off. A learning disorder doesn't mean shit. But boy can the label scare you. How did you type everything right? Likely autocorrect with a hint of learning how to manage it. Homework in 2nd grade was to learn our parents' real names instead of mom and dad. I came in and told the class my mom had a different last name than me. The teacher said no, her last name is Jutsu like yours and your daddy. That's what happens when you get married. I told her that it was just me and my mom and that my daddy never lived with us. She told the class that meant they needed to pray for me and my mommy because we were going to hell. That was my last day at that school. Not nearly as bad as yours, but I had a classmate in 8th grade called Susie. That was her given name. It was what was on her birth certificate. It's what she was always called. She wasn't Susan or Suzanne, just Susie. I guess she was named for a relative that only went by that name. Well, 99% of teachers had no issue with this. All her paperwork said Susie. She wanted to be called Susie. All her friends and family called her Susie. Really not a big deal, until Sister H came along. Sister H insisted that Susie was not her real name and that it had to be Susan or Susan and that Susie was lying. Susie was like, no, Susie is my given, legal name. It's what's on my birth certificate and it's what's on my baptismal certificate. Sister H was not having that and would call her Susan. Why this was Sister H's hill to die on I will never know, but it culminated in the principal getting involved. Susie's mother coming to the school and Sister H not calling Susie by her name for the rest of the year. It would be upsetting if it weren't so incredibly ridiculous. I went to high school that had a uniform. We were supposed to have our shirts tucked in at all times. I was walking into English class, between bells, tucking in my shirt because it came up out of my skirt while I was taking my cardigan off. My English teacher stopped me and asked, "Were you just tucking your shirt in?" I told her I was and she promptly wrote me up for having had my shirt untucked. It was utter bullshit and I lost total respect for her. In my high school we had to tuck our shirts in unless it was a sweater. I even went and made sure with the teacher it was okay and she said, "Why would you tuck a sweater in?" A few weeks later she wrote me up for not tucking in my sweater. I was not happy with her. I had shirts since your English until Y11. I always had to have it tucked in, and my tie correct, and everything else. They didn't care about the girls throwing wet tampons in the changing rooms. This happened when I was in Y7. Oh no. You get a bad note because your tie had less than 6 stripes showing. Yes, this was a rule. I had a teacher demand I change out of my yoga pants even though yoga pants weren't even against school policy. If they were banned, you bet your ass she would have started a riot. She also gave me a C on a project where we were supposed to decorate masks. Everyone else got mostly A's. Like how the fuck you even grade something that is supposed to be artistic anyways? Mine was simple because I didn't have much money to spend on decorating it, but to this day I still believe it was better than the sparkly bullshit some kids turned in. Little me was obsessed with two things: dinosaurs until I saw Jurassic Park, and space. I was obsessed. In 3rd grade we had an assignment where we had to talk about orbits. I wrote examples like the moon orbits the earth orbits the sun, and the sun orbits the Milky Way. My teacher gave me a D and refused to listen to me that what I had said was true. We didn't have computers in the classroom so there was no way to look it up. I tried to bring a book with it the next day but she blew me off. Joke's on her though because I'm about to get my PhD in astronomy. Edit. I wasn't quite clear in what I wrote. She didn't believe the sun orbiting around the center of the Milky Way. She wasn't anti-Copernican. Till the sun orbits the Milky Way they thought I was doing coke in class at the age of 14. Still bitter about that 5-day in school suspension. What kind of school did you go to that a 14-year doing coke was a thought? Same school that 11th graders are doing heroin in the bathroom are. Glasgow High. To be fair, my school had this actually happen. A classmate of my sister, Ike. Rich teens are wild. Primary school teacher asked me what the biggest number possible is. I said numbers go on forever so there is no biggest number. My dad had told me that fact and it was interesting so I remembered it. The teacher told me that was stupid and proceeded to grab one of the really cheap school calculators and type in as many 9s as could fit on the display. She then held it up in my face and said that's the biggest number there is. That still annoys me to this day. Holy shit. How did she graduate college? You'd be surprised. There was a guy in one of my senior level classes in college who had no idea that plants were alive. He thought they were like rocks. Yes, they are indeed like rocks. Rocks that breathe and produce food and are alive in a general sense. In about 1966 when I was 6 our class was making some sort of valentines with multiple folds on which we were supposed to write little Valentine's Day messages. The teacher was wandering between the desks while scanning our projects. At one point I guess I had written on the wrong side of one of the folds. So she stopped at my desk, grabbed my hand and slammed it down forcefully on the desktop. It hurt and was very embarrassing. Her. I hope the 54 years she has lived since then have been miserable. If it is any consolation, she's probably dead by now. Definitely, OP made sure of that. Probably mad you had someone to give a Valentine message to, and she didn't. Told me that I wasn't worthy of anyone's respect. Broke a kid's phone and lied about it to assistant principals. Yelled at my choir director for playing the piano while there was AP testing going on. When it was her first year at the school and many of her students were present. The list goes on and on. Fuck that guy. I would have loved someone playing the piano during tests. Opens first page of the exam dun 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 unless it was that generic movie trailer music where it is really dramatic.